This is the time, this is the place, and this is FC3 Monkey Business, your one-stop shop for everything geeky. And since everything is geeky, if you love it enough, you never know what you're going to get. Today, you're going to get something new and interesting. At least I'm hoping so. This is your host, IMC. This week, we're going to be talking about International Tabletop Day with the help of Professor Scott Nicholson, Professor of Game and Development at Wilfrid Laurier University in Brantford, Ontario. After that, stick around for our upcoming events, Everyday Hero shoutouts, and our question of the week. Doo-doo. How you doing, gang?
Hi.
Are we having fun yet?
Well, absolutely.
I'm telling you, this
Don't
one
we
of those
always
days.
have fun?
Yep. I think we always do it. There's always some sort of giggling going on.
I didn't know where you were going with the intro.
Well, that's because you never know what you're going to get.
I'm like, what the heck is he doing?
He's free-forming. No, I was sort of on this. I was near the script.
You were near the script, but I'm like, my
he
whole
was script
routine
adjacent.
Was off. My whole routine was off. I'm like, what?
Please, you're not that OCD. Well, yeah, actually you are. Never mind.
I was rearranging the headphones in the studio earlier. Come on,
Yeah,
making sure that everyone had their own spots.
That was a thing.
That was a thing.
Billy, how you doing over there?
I'm good. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Billy.
You
hi.
sound kind of blah.
No, I'm good.
Are you sure?
I was up late last night.
Well, it's baseball season.
Well, not that. Baseball. No, actually, baseball wasn't over at this time. But I was just flipping through the channels, and I must have dreamt this. I think I dreamt I got sucked into an episode of Cupcake Wars.
Are you sure that was a dream?
No, I'm not
happens.
sure.
That happens.
I have no interest in making cupcakes, but I wanted to see the human disasters trying to make a pulled pork barbecue cupcake.
Pulled pork barbecue. Oh, my
Was
stars
that
and
a
garters.
secret ingredient?
Yeah, that and well, they were trying to make something with a southern flair for Jeanette McCurdy, who you may know from the TV show iCarly.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
Was
Sam.
releasing her country western album. So they wanted to make something for her album premiere party or her album release party. And so they were trying to make, and they gave them wacky ingredients. Someone was making a shrimp gumbo cupcake.
Oh, my God.
Someone made a fried chicken cupcake.
I like shrimp gumbo, but I don't think I can see it as a cupcake.
None of these cupcakes came out well.
I'm sure.
Can't imagine
One of the people set their kitchen on fire,
Oh, nice.
which made me stick through the next commercial
that's
break.
it.
Absolutely.
That's enough. You want to see that.
You know, that aired in like 2011.
Yeah, they said there was a reference to it being like 2010 or 2011.
That was season 3, episode 13.
So Jeanette McCurdy's album's been out for about, 6-7 years now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, she's probably going into the world of hip hop to
Yeah, who knows?
rework her
She's
career.
so cute.
She is.
Yes.
She's a doll.
I used to like Carly better, though.
Well, that was you're supposed to because she was the Miranda
Cosgrove.
Cosgrove.
Yeah, because she's supposed to be the star of the show. So you're not supposed to like the B-list characters more than.
But
your-
Sam was a
usually
side
do,
character.
though.
Huh?
Yes,
I
but
usually
then,
do.
But
like the
then
side
there was
characters better.
a show called Sam a Cat.
Right.
That had Ariana Grande.
To this day, I still
And-
thought Ariana Grande was a font.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Isn't that
I thought she was
Ariel?
a coffee size.
So you go to Starbucks and you order an Ariana Grande.
Exactly.
Hey, Sherry, you sound good today. You sound a little bit more not on the phone.
She sounds
I
closer.
can't imagine.
She sounds-
Do you want me to call in? I can.
No, I don't think I want you to call in today.
There might be a slight echo.
There it is.
We'll put you in another room.
And Sherry and Chris are in the studio today on this beautiful spring week. This is summer for Rochester. When it gets to 45,
No,
50
this is
degrees,
construction
this is
season.
construction season.
Yes. Winter or construction
Winter
season?
or construction.
It's almost winter.
Winter.
Still
winter. And construction. So there are 4 seasons.
Yes. Well, it's good to see the both of you. I haven't
Thank you,
actually laid
guys.
eyes on you in a while.
Do
Good
you
to be
guys still
seen.
have like only 6 feet of snow in the yard?
It's starting to
Actually,
melt.
Chris has a system.
I shovel all the snow back into the driveway.
And let it start melting.
So it melts. And I actually talked to 2 different people yesterday that do exactly the same thing.
That's a good
Thins out
strategy.
thins out the piles. Absolutely.
Now they need to do that in like the mall parking lots. Now start taking down some of the piles
Yeah.
and knocking them down and
Yeah.
get rid of it because
Yeah.
because we want
wants
the
his-
parking spaces back.
And Chris does it because he wants his flowers.
Well, that's not a bad thing to think about.
my
Seriously.
I've got-
daffodils are starting to break through the ground already.
Are they really?
Yeah.
None of mine
amazing.
have because they're still under snow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got daffodils and
sleeping.
hyacinths and tulips and lilies and gladiolus and all kinds of other
So you got to go
nonsense.
find them.
Yes.
You people with ambition.
I know. Seriously, it's weird.
My mother-in-law planted those, so they're just popping up.
So Billy and I on our respective Facebooks, mainly because I nominated them, we're starting our top 10 favorite album covers.
I did that too.
I'm not playing.
I saw Sherry. Tanya, you're
Melanie.
getting nominated anyway.
That's
Melanie
okay. I'm still not
nominated
playing.
this morning.
Billy, remind me, what's your first one?
First one, Bare Naked Ladies, Gordon. their
Okay.
debut
Nice.
album.
That's
So
going
they-
to be on my list. That will be on my
And
list.
the way I took it is they're not necessarily going to be my very favorite albums, although that one is. Many of them are going to be in my favorite album list. But there's some that were they've had an impact in my life.
That's what I was thinking doing too.
So that there will be a mixture of favorite albums plus ones that, for some reason, even if they're not in my top 10 favorites, they for some reason mean something to me.
I'm thinking of I can't remember the album name right now. I got to look it up. I'm somewhere along the line. I'm going to be putting up the album from Yellow that had "Oh Yeah" and "Cadola Dola." on it.
Okay.
Because I remember hearing that my freshman year of college was the first time I experienced that album in its entirety, and just the way that they created and crafted each of the songs. It's cool. It was very cool.
Yes.
So I like that band. Oh, you got something?
I was going. I don't think this is it. I was going to try, but
Cadola. That's it. There you go.
That's it.
Oh yeah.
See, I think of Ferris Bueller.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And when I am an older man, I want to be as classy as the guy with the I can't remember which one it is. I think it's Hans or Boris. I can't remember which one, but the fellow with the long gray hair and the mustache, and he's always wearing suits in all the videos. I'm like, I want to be classy like that guy when I'm an older dude, because
I want to live my life like him.
seriously, because that man's rocking out and creating all this great techno stuff and great music, and he's doing it, with style, So that's a good thing. All right, so moving on, we got work to do today. Apparently,
We do.
Quick, we're going to do our sponsor shout-outs. As always, much love for Knox and Selena's, for First Print Comics, The Great Escape Room, and Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey. And for Patreon, what is Patreon? Patreon is a membership platform that makes it easy for you to support Monkey Business and the Flower City Comic-Con. So please check us out on Patreon. So it's www.patreon.com/FC3ROC. All membership levels will include access to the Patreon-only blog, plus tons of other great perks as well. I've been doing my director's blog
I was
lately.
going to say, did you do your blog?
I did not do one this week because I was
No.
kind of caught up with a bunch of other things, but I will make sure to make up for that on Tuesday.
So it
That's when I
means
usually
2?
record one. No, I don't know if I'll do 2, but I'll probably just do like an
Extra special one?
maybe like a 15-minute one instead of 10. I don't know.
He'll do a musical.
I'll do a musical number.
Are you going to sing I'm a Barbie Girl?
No.
Please.
No, I will not. No. I don't care how cute you guys are. I'm not going to do
He's
that.
going to.
I'll subscribe to Patreon.
He's going to sing "I'm a Barbie Shrimp" by Aquaman.
There it is. I'm a Barbie shrimp with a cupcake world. It's okay. Gumbo. And Apple Podcasts want to help others find the show. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Every review will be thanked on air, and any questions you log with us will be answered. We want this to be a conversation, so please send your questions.
Please.
Please, please, please. So we're going to take a quick break, and when we do, we're going to be back with Professor Scott Nicholson from Wilfrid Laurier University in Brantford, Ontario, and we're going to be discussing International Tabletop Day, which is coming up.
And since we're talking about games, I'll leave you with some comedy by Dan Natterman.
Now, we didn't have television growing up. My father thought TV was bad for you, so we played board games instead, like Trivial Pursuit. You remember that, right? Well, our whole family would gather around and play Trivial Pursuit, till we discovered that nobody in my family could answer any of those questions. And then we had to change the rules to something we could handle, and it just became who could throw the pieces the farthest. For the bonus round, eat the pieces.
Warm up those dice, gather up the meeples, and grab a red marker and circle April 28th on your calendar. International Tabletop Day is a worldwide celebration of tabletop gaming for all. In its 7th year, the day-long event is filled with gaming events, charity fundraising, and collaborative online entertainment. Joining us today is Professor Scott Nicholson. Scott Nicholson is a professor of game design and development at Wilfrid Laurier University in Brantford, Ontario, and the director of the Brantford Game Network BGNlab. He has written research papers on escape rooms, meaningful gamification, games in libraries, online education, and data mining. He is the author of Everyone Plays at the Library, Creating Great Gaming Experiences for All Ages, and the designer of 2 board games, Going, Gone, and Tulip Mania 1637. He is available to consult and speak about escape rooms, gamification, educational and serious game design, and board games. Welcome to the show, Professor. It's great to have you on board with us today. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you very much. Those were a lot of fine words that you said about me.
I can't take full credit for them because Sherry writes most of my intro work for me. I'm just really good at reading. I think it's basically my strong suit at the moment. And Sherry, you have you've met the professor in the past.
I actually took a class with him.
Did you really know?
Yes.
And where was that?
That was at Syracuse University.
Okay.
When he was the head of the Masters of Library Sciences.
Now, how long ago was that?
Oh God.
You're making her count that
A
back?
decade ago or so.
Yeah, about 10 years ago.
All right, so it's kind of like a class reunion kind of a thing going on. That's great. Okay, cool. So, Professor, my first question is gamification. Can you give me a little bit more of a heads up on what that word really kind of entails?
So gamification is where you're taking elements from games and adding them to something in the real world.
Okay.
The goal is to motivate someone to do something in the real world because they're engaging with your game elements. So the common thing you see are like points and badges and leaderboards and things like that. I actually do a class about meaningful gamification where I talk about the fact that all of those things are fairly meaningless. And when those rewards are gone, you're actually not motivated to do that thing. And it can actually cause long-term harm. So I talk about using things like play and storytelling and creation to get people actually engaged in something.
Okay.
You know, I want to jump onto that because I'm a teacher and we use a program called Schoology. And in regards to Schoology, we have different badges that we can earn by taking the online courses and posting to certain things. So I've actually taken a course on gamification, like as a professional development type thing. So it's actually like really, really cool.
And Tanya, is that just for you, the professors, the teachers, or is that do the students embark on that as well?
There's the way that we as a teacher could actually create stuff in the classroom and kind of like have them start earning different levels and badges and things like that, that we could create something that we could use actually in the classroom.
Interesting. Okay.
A lot of people confuse gamification with game-based learning. So gamification is kind of like the syllabus in the class. It's like if you think about what's on a syllabus, it's this grade system that doesn't really have anything to do with teaching you the content. It's just there to motivate you to do stuff. Game-based learning is where you actually integrate the content into the gameplay, so they can't be separated. And through the playing of the game, you're actually learning the content. And so a lot of folks are calling everything related to games gamification, but it's important to talk about those two differently because they actually trigger different sorts of motivation. Gamification is an extrinsic motivator. You're doing things for the rewards, while game-based learning can help build that intrinsic motivation, and that's where lifelong change can come.
Okay. All right. So and I see how that they can kind of mesh together and be laced together. How does one get into this? I mean, this has been kind of your focus for quite some time. How do you kind of enter into this realm of education?
Well, I guess it starts by being a gamer. So I have been a lifelong gamer. As a kid, I grew up with the Atari 2600 in my hand. Any other 2600 players?
Oh yes,
absolutely. I actually still have mine.
Okay.
We're all of an age, Scott.
All right.
I just didn't have one.
So I grew up with that. I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons out of a blue box and a red box.
Nice.
And then grew up consuming any board game that I could find as I was growing up. And so I got to college and got involved with live-action role-playing, where we would actually put on costumes and act out roles. And I actually started at that point writing for live-action role-playing and got involved in more of the behind-the-scenes part and really started to engage with game design at that point. My first design was a live-action role-playing system for the world of Call of Cthulhu. So I was one of the authors on the game Call of Cthulhu Live. So that led into my undergrad was actually math, computers, and science, and then I was a programmer for a while. I got tired of my hobby of programming and computing being my job, so I switched over and got my master's in library science and became a librarian.
Okay.
Did that for a while, and then moved on to get my PhD in information science. And after that point, I joined the faculty at Syracuse University. Started teaching in the library school, and about 2007, I was at an American Library Association conference, and they were doing Dance Dance Revolution. I said, well, that's interesting. What's going on here? And so I chatted with them at that point about what they were doing, and they were talking about using video games to get teenagers to come into the library. And I knew from having been a lifelong gamer that games were good for a lot more age groups than just teenagers, and there were many more types of games than just video games. And I decided at that point I was going to stake my flag in that space of games and libraries and try to tell the world that, games are more than Guitar Hero and Mario Kart. And there's this world of tabletop games and role-playing games and live-action stuff that might actually be a better pick in libraries. Mm-hmm. So I did that for about 5 years and wrote my book at that point. Then I was invited to go to MIT for a year as a visiting professor. That came out of, I'd been doing in my basement the first video series about board games on YouTube called Board Games with Scott. So I actually, from 2005 to 2010, I started doing Board Games with Scott, and MIT said, hey, would you like to come up and help us explore board games a bit more with our students? So I did that for a year, and that's where I began to push beyond libraries and looking at museums and schools and other ways that they were using games to make a difference in the world. And I knew at that point that's where I wanted to head. So I began to cast my net to say, I'd like to go somewhere where I can lead a program to help people make games to change the world. Wilfrid Laurier University in Canada, the branch campus where I am in Brantford, has a campus that's mainly focused on social justice. So there's programs here like nursing and education and things like that. And I said, we could make a game program with a social justice heartbeat where all of the students are making games with real-world outcomes. So we don't make recreational games. We're making games for museums, schools, libraries, for corporate training with social justice. The students work on both board games in their first year and video games in their second and third year. In the fourth year, they partner with an organization and make a game. But we're always making games to change the world, games with some real-world consequences.
Okay. Are you seeing like a life simulator almost? That's
That could be. In fact, that's actually, it's more simulation is the better term to use, where you're going to take, because two of the rules I have in my board game design class, rule one, no games where you roll a die and move a piece on a board. Mm-hmm. Because that's the easy way to make a bad board game.
Okay.
And no games where you ask people trivia questions off of cards, because that's an easy way to make a bad educational game.
Gotcha.
So instead, you have to think about, how do I simulate a piece of the world? How do I get players making choices that are meaningful, and they're learning through making those choices? Mm-hmm. Now, everything the students learn in our program, that's actually going to be useful to them if they want to make recreational games, because you're still trying to motivate customers to engage with your game, to play your game. You're thinking about the customers, the players first. It's user-driven design. Mm-hmm. So the students actually take a lot of classes in user experience design, as well as in project management, public speaking, things like that. But for me, it all started as a kid being engaged with games, through college, beginning to make games, bringing into a career, looking to how to use games to make a difference, and then continuing to follow that passion. So if you remember, I left my early computer programming job about my hobby and my job. I didn't want to mix those up.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't learn that lesson too well. So now I run this game lab where about half of my board game collection is there in the lab. What I do is I actually try to focus on tabletop games and live-action games in my research and my teaching and my design, so that I can save video games for my own recreation. And that way I still have something that can be play for me.
Gotcha. Just last week we were having a talk with Jeremy Crawford, who's the editor-in-chief of the 5th edition of Dungeons & Dragons, and he was making a point of saying how he likes to try and compartmentalize. He has a game at home that he plays, a D&D game, and then he uses none of the information of stuff they're developing, and all of the theory and all of the stuff that's kind of in the works is off to the side. Everything has got to be solid book stuff, and so he kind of tries to keep it
separate.
Everything separated. So I understand that. Now, do you still play D&D stuff like that, or yourself, or this?
So I do. When I'm doing my role playing, I'm doing live action role playing.
Okay, so you're sticking with LARPs. Okay.
I just returned from Sweden, where I had gone to Sweden, and the Nordic countries are actually the experts in live action role playing in the world.
Really?
And they have a style of LARPing live action role playing called Nordic LARP. Uh-huh. And in Nordic LARP, it's much more of a simulation of a real-world activity. So, for example, they ran one called 1942, which was set in a village in Norway, and about 60 people played either villagers or German guards. It was about as the German guards settled in and lived in this space. Mm-hmm. So you were given a role of a villager. And a big difference is you're not playing to win. In fact, the joke is you say you're playing to lose. You're playing to tell a good story. You're going into this space to explore your emotions and feelings, and they're not always positive, and it's a very different space. Mm-hmm. One of the games I played while there was exploring the concept of hopelessness. And throughout the game, you were losing hope of ever being rescued. And they actually started the game by saying, spoiler, all of you will be dead by the end of this game.
Oh, wow, okay.
Take this time to explore what it would be like to face death. And it's a maturity of game design that we really don't see anywhere else right now. if we compare game design to other forms of media design, to movies, to books, we figured out in movies and books how to do tragedy and the importance of exploring stories that are not always you're the hero.
Mm-hmm.
In games, we really aren't there. There's a few things we've seen, Shadow of the Colossus and things in the indie world, and we see some of it in tabletop role-playing. But for the most part, we're really stuck on this be the hero story. And the Nordic LARP space is leading the forefront on games that make you think in other directions and affect you emotionally. People said, are they fun? Well, I wouldn't say they're fun, but they are engaging.
It's like learning history through a different lens in respect.
I actually did a paper about historical escape rooms just on this concept. And we developed a few for museums. Over in Fort Stanwix up in upstate New York, we made an escape room there that helps you learn about a little bit of the fort through playing in this escape room space. And I think that the long tail of escape rooms after the recreational bubble bursts, which is going to happen, the longer tail is going to be through the historical fiction space and understanding what happened in an area by playing an interactive game.
Awesome.
See, and that's... We are big aficionados of the Renaissance Festival because it gives us a chance to, quote-unquote, feel like we're a part of things, but this really takes it to a different level where it's not like just a surface kind of superficial feeling like you're a part of things. You dive in and you become really interacted with it. You really kind of start seeing it in a whole different angle. That's
an important part of that is actually giving the player agency, that you have the power to make choices. I've seen some people be critical of living history spaces where they have interactions and the players are given the role of being a water bearer for the day, or you get to be a gardener. And the problem with that model is it's not putting your attendees in an important role. You're letting the actors take the important role, and the attendees are getting to carry water around. So instead, when you design an escape room or even a tabletop game or a video game about this, you want to put the players in a role that matters, a role where they can see, they can make choices, they can have agency, and then they will see the impact of those choices. And that's where you can really get people engaged as compared to doing a trivial task, or like in a Renaissance fair where you're more of an observer and the actors are playing the important roles. Well, what if there was a flip on that where you actually let your folks that were attending take on roles and be the king for an hour and make decrees and see the impact of making those decrees? So looking to game models to bring more agency, that's coming back to meaningful gamification like we talked about at the beginning.
Right.
Using game models to get people engaged in something in the real world.
That's amazing. That's and that
really is.
It seriously is mind blowing. Yeah. That's a lot more than I rolled 5, take 5 and then answer that question. It's a whole different level.
Okay, before we get too far, I wanted to ask a quick question. The room that you created at Fort Stanwix, is it still there, or is that just for a limited time?
So they still run it, but they run it for short periods of time because it does require an actor in the room.
Okay.
But I do see the announcements that every few months they run it. They'll open it up for a Saturday again for a day. That was a game that we designed, a 20-minute escape game for families to play together, because many escape games are not designed for kids. And so it was important that a family, so it's designed, you come in, you play the game, it's the first thing you do, because the story of the game is that you are in the quartermaster's office and attempting to figure out how to sabotage the fort. You're actually playing as British spies.
Oh, nice.
Because putting the player, this is a common design trick I use when I'm making meaningful games, is it's called flip the script. And it's the idea that you're putting the player in the role of the bad guy, because it gets them to then think about, what would a bad guy do? We're making a game right now with my students. So we've been making games for Red Bull and making games for other media properties. So we're making a series of escape rooms now for the upcoming release of a video series. And we are making the players the bad guy to do things around information security technology. And so we are helping, by playing the game, you're going to understand what can someone get from your Facebook account. How likely is it that you can have your credit card information taken with an RFID scanner? And we're making the players something. Here's an example of something that's not in the game, so I can talk about it.
Okay.
At one point, we had the idea that the players would actually install onto an ATM skimmer.
Oh boy!
And then come back and collect it later, so that they got to see how a skimmer works and how they can then, in the real world, check for those skimmers to see if they're on an ATM machine. The idea of giving the player the ability to be the bad guy, to understand how bad guys think, can help them be a lot more safer in the real world.
That's amazing.
That's wild.
It's an entirely it's like next level that you wouldn't even have considered. I'll tell you, as soon as Sherry told me the topic was going to be international tabletop, and then I was going to have a professor of games and design, the very first thing that popped into my head was from Starship Troopers, where Neil Patrick Harris's character was in games and theory, and I'm like, where are we going with this? I don't understand. So this is I'm loving this. This is great. A whole lot of information here. Let me circle back to International Tabletop Day real quick. I know that Geek and Sundry put that together, and it's been 7 years now, as we were saying in the intro. Okay, do you see this? Do you have a way of maximizing that? Do you kind of jump on that bandwagon a little bit, and are there events that you get behind?
So what's nice about this day is it's a time to point people to go to a friendly local game store and check out that store. This is one of the we're at a critical point in the board game world because with both Kickstarter and online sales, it's made it very hard for your friendly local game store to survive. People will either go to the game stores, they'll check out the games, and then check online and say, oh, I can buy this for a third of the price, it would save a lot of money, and order it online, I'll just do that. Well, that's going to make it difficult for that game store to continue to have those games for you to go and look at if you don't support them. So what I prefer to do is to push people to go to local game stores, to see the game stores and to play games there, because that's at the heart of this day is that importance of helping people understand that the services game stores offer, because what's happening is many game stores now are offering places for people to play, to meet with each other. That's how they're now trying to survive in this environment with the hopes that while their people are there, they will pick up some games to be able to play. Right. So that's my encouragement, is to go to a friendly local game store and support that game store and help that space to exist.
Do you have one shop in particular you want to give a plug to?
Well, J&J Games up in Waterloo, Ontario is my local fantastic store.
Awesome.
That's a great place. They have a great selection. So if you're ever traveling through Waterloo, take a look.
I will definitely do that. We have a couple in the area that Sherry wanted me to plug. Enlightening Minds Gaming on Dewey Road or Dewey Avenue? Is it Rochester?
Yeah, it's Rochester.
It says Dewey Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Millennium Games is one of our flagships, and that's in West Henrietta Road in Henrietta.
And then probably...
And that is always a place I stop. Every time I drive from where I live to Syracuse, I always stop at the Millennium Games.
Millennium?
So you're familiar with that?
It's in my backyard.
Yep.
Yep.
Chances are probably Just Games in Penfield.
Oh, that's right.
They're not listed on the official Geek and Sundry International Tabletop Game website. These are the ones pulled directly from them, so I know that they're specifically involved.
All right.
But that's at least another local one that has
absolutely.
people playing,
they're probably
games.
doing stuff.
They probably are.
Sherry, you got a couple out in the area near you that...
In Syracuse, Comic Zone on South Main Street in North Syracuse, and down in mine and Chris's area, there is Wanna Play Cafe, who we are very big... we go there a lot.
We go there a lot. It's a lot of fun.
That's a great place. They're doing
great
something.
Food and good times.
Yep.
That's it. See, that's
you can try out all different types of games.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. And the Utica Public Library is doing something really big.
Oh, yeah?
For International Tabletop
Very
Day.
cool. Well, that's something to look forward to for the folks out there.
Yep.
All right. So now we've kind of touched that a little bit. My question to you, Professor, would be where do you go from here? Where do you see like future projects? How do you see this evolving? This whole culture.
So as far as in my own work or this?
We'll start with your own work right now.
So my own focus now is on the world of escape rooms.
Okay.
Because the power of creating these live-action experiences, bringing people together and for me, it's focusing on using these as learning opportunities, whether they be a recreational room. They don't all have to be about zombies and offices. They can actually be about something that's going on, and that's a pattern. A lot of folks don't realize that North America is slower on escape rooms than Europe and Asia, that they actually started in Asia, then moved to Europe, and then hit North America. So Europe is about 3 years ahead of North America in general, around escape rooms. And if you look at what's happening there, most cities in Europe have escape rooms, at least one escape room that's related to the local history of that city.
Okay.
I find that's really exciting, and I look forward to that happening here in North America, where escape room owners look at what's something interesting that's happened in this place where we live, where we can create a story that no one else has. And as players play that story, they're then going to be able to understand something about it. So to further that, on my side here at the university, we're in the process of putting together an escape room studio where we can put forth temporary escape rooms, test new ways of telling stories and getting people engaged. For me, escape rooms are a lot more than just puzzles in a room. They're about engaging in stories and giving players agency and getting them intrigued to want to go out and explore more about what's happening. So that's my continued focus, is in this world of live-action gaming and bringing people, getting them physically engaged in what's going on.
That's outstanding. Okay.
There actually is a new escape room on Scottsville Road called the Nut House.
Oh, is that?
Yeah, it's right across from like the airport.
Okay. And that's different. One of our sponsors, Professor, is the Great Escape Room of Rochester, and they have a variety of rooms, but it's more of along the lines of the very standard kind of, solve the puzzles, get out of the room. There's not a lot of there's like an overwhelming theme for the room.
They're all Sherlock Holmes based.
Sherlock Holmes kind of esque feeling to it, but it's not what you're saying. And I see what you're saying is like what I was saying earlier is like the next level stuff. Mm-hmm. We're going to actually have a junior escape room of sorts, kind of a low-key, stripped-down one at the convention that we do. We have the Flower City Comic-Con, and we're having that in June. So Great Escape Rooms of Rochester is going to be coming in and setting up an actual escape room. So we're kind of excited about that. But I'm listening to what you're saying, and I'm like, I want to talk to these people and say, Rochester has a lot of history. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff going on here, with the Underground Railroad and with the development of photography industry and things like that. There's got to be stuff we can tap on.
There's no reason to. You have this opportunity to have people physically engaged in a space. You have to make up a story anyway, or you should. I wrote a paper about the different generations. There was a paper about the generations of technology in escape room, and I wrote a counter paper about the generations of narrative in escape room to explore and encourage escape rooms to move beyond. First, the generation one is just random puzzles in a room, and then second generation is where you have themed puzzles in a room. So it sounds like that's what you're talking about, where they're all Sherlock Holmes-y, themed like it, but there's no real connection to a story.
Right.
Deeper. And so that Generation 3 is where you have a story that is being told through the puzzles that you do. We made one of those here in Brantford. So I taught, last semester, I taught the North America's first escape room design class.
Oh, okay.
And
that's cool.
I took the 40 students, and we ran a downtown theatrical live-action puzzle event in November, celebrating an event that happened 150 years ago in Brantford at the founding of Canada. And as players engage with the challenges were all about them solving what happened with this mystery and learning more about the layout of Brantford and what it was like at that time, learning about the social pressures and who the different social classes were at that point. And the whole purpose of the puzzles was to help people to learn more about these different situations. And so we can do that. And then the Generation 4 escape rooms is where you actually give players a meaningful choice. And that choice makes a difference with what's going on. So in our game, players had a moment to go back in time to observe something that happened 150 years ago, but they were instructed, don't change anything, don't change the past, you're just there to look. Well, they end up watching someone who gets locked in a closet. They have the opportunity to open the door and let the person out. And if they do, it changes history.
Okay.
And so the players have this, and they're told, don't touch anything. This thing plays out. This person gets locked in a closet. He's banging, let me out. And what actually happens, they know in the future that this person is what the mystery is about. And the suspicion is this person's skeleton was actually found in the town hall of Brantford when it was reconstructed. Years later, that was what the Historical Society unearthed for us.
Wow.
And so they have the opportunity to let him out. And so if they do let him out, they get an announcement from their director saying, what have you done? You've changed the past. You've got 2 minutes to fix it. So at that point, the team has to choose, do they leave someone behind locked in this closet or not?
Wow.
And so there's three paths as to how the game finishes based upon whether they did nothing, whether they let the person out and didn't fix it, or whether they let the person out and did fix it. And so the players succeed or fail at their main mission, and if they fail at their main mission, they're actually invited to join a secret group that's fighting against this group saying, yeah, it's okay to change the past when we need to, and that is embroiling what will happen in the class the next time I teach it, and we design the next year's room.
As a longtime Doctor Who fan, I know meddling with time is entertaining as hell. So I seriously, I'm all in on that. In lieu of the fact that not all of us are going to be able to travel up to Brantford to take your classes, what are some materials that we would be able to kind of like find either online or maybe on a shelf at a bookstore? What are some of the things that we can do to introduce ourselves to some of this next level, this higher thinking of looking at game theory?
So what I do is everything I write, I put online. And so if you go to scottnicholson.com, you will find a link there that's all of my papers and publications. Whether or not I'm supposed to, according to the copyright agreements with the publishers, they're not paying me anyway. So you'll find all of my papers on there, which have not only I did a international survey of escape rooms. I'm talking about these different models. So if you go to scottnicholson.com and click on the publications link, you will find lots and lots of writing there, not only on escape rooms, on meaningful gamification, what we just talked about with the psychology of gamification. You'll find about 30 pieces on games and libraries. And if you want to keep going, you'll learn all about data mining and web search tools.
Wow. Okay.
I'm looking at it right now.
Are you? And what do you see?
A whole bunch of blue links to all these papers.
So there's a lot of material there to take in.
Oh,
that's exciting stuff.
I will definitely be speaking to the people at Utica Public Library about this.
Okay.
Because they also do a con.
Oh, that's right. They do. You were talking about
Pandemicon, and we're part of that as well.
I'm going to hop over to exploring gamification techniques for classroom management.
Okay. Which is good for you. I mean, because as a special education teacher,
yes.
That was the article where I did a study on these extrinsic motivators like leaderboards and points and badges, and found the harm that they can do. And so I'm presenting the results from that, and then ways to do it, ways to use gamification that won't harm your learners.
See, just talking about that reminds me back in elementary school about those things, and I can see how it can harm people. You know, stigma.
Well, great lesson from this.
Yeah.
So kids, before they go to school, they want to learn about the world. They're asking questions. They want to know about what's going on. And then we begin to reward them for learning. We begin to give them grades. And having them have this reward for learning disincentivizes their own desire to continue exploring the world. So you end up with kids that then don't want to learn because they've been rewarded. They don't want to learn. Is there a grade for this? Is this going to be on the exam? I don't want to learn it if it's not.
Yeah.
So the grade system actually has done more harm than anything to create people that when they're done don't really want to continue to learn, and that has to rebuild over time. That's what happens is these reward systems, they harm your intrinsic motivation, and then that has to be rebuilt over time. And so we've done a lot of harm to our learners by focusing so much on grades and tests and all of that stuff, and that's gamification. It's adding game-like elements to motivate people, and that's the problem with these sorts of empty reward systems.
And that probably helps with individuals who have trouble learning to begin with.
Oh, yeah.
It just gives them a different avenue to learn things.
Right. If
so
someone doesn't have intrinsic motivation for something, then the rewards are a way to get them going. The important thing at that point is to make a conversion that during that learning process, while you have them doing something, help them find what is intrinsically motivating to them, which is why in all of my classes I let my students pick their project focuses. I let them find, so they're semester one in my program for game design is the students identify 3 organizations that they have some interest in, identify an audience that each organization serves, and a way that organization is trying to motivate the audience. And then they pitch games to make that happen. And that's the first semester. And then the second semester they make board game prototypes. And the next semester they begin to make digital games to focus on this and continue to build this making games for people. But it's driven by the student's passion, because that's how you can get over the harm we do with just using rewards, is you try to build with this intrinsic motivation.
We, as you're probably well aware, we have the Strong Museum of Play here in Rochester.
My favorite museum in the entire world.
And it's up there on my list as well. And we were just there last weekend. We tabled there for the con. They have their superhero weekend that they have every spring. And right on the wall of the main entrance as you walk in is this quote, and I'm not going to do it justice, but to paraphrase, it was basically, to learn to play is to learn to live. You know, is in essence what the message is. And it just, if we could just pass that, I would love to put Professor Nicholson in the same room as my mother, who was a school teacher for 37 years. And she's retired now, but she was saying so much about, you know, her observations and how grades and testing and standardizing testing and things like that were just the completely wrong direction to have gone in. To listen to the two educators bantering back and forth, I think that would be amazing. So that's okay. I'm going to trip over my own words right now because I'm absorbing information right now.
Well, you hit on an important phrase there, and that's the phrase play. When I talk about games, a game is a form of play with goals and structure. That's the pocket definition I use for it. And so at the heart of a game is play. And if you think about, we've talked about gamification and these motivations to play by giving you rewards is actually what games do. Games create rewards to motivate you to play. So if you can now step back and say, could we just play? Could we just explore, have the freedom to explore space and enjoy creating rules on the fly and breaking rules? Because that's play. That's what play is. It's the freedom to explore the boundaries of a space and you push those boundaries, and you break the rules, and you change the rules, and you mess things around, and it's very intrinsically motivating. So that's why I like the Museum of Play so much, is they grab that spirit of play, and I try to help people in the games that I'm creating. So I'm in Going, Gone, I wanted to create a board game that gave people a more playful experience around auctions. And so the way I did that, in each round of the game, there are 5 auctions that go off simultaneously in 10 seconds. Because I got tired of boring auction games where you just slowly counted numbers up at each other. So instead, you've got a handful of cubes, and the cubes are being thrown into these little buckets, and each bucket is one auction. And whoever puts the most cubes into a bucket in 10 seconds wins the auction. However, the timer is set by one player. Each round there's a different auctioneer, and that player gets to determine the pace of the auction. So the player's going to count from 10 to 1, and they can count fast, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1, and people are panicking and throwing cubes everywhere, or they can count slowly, 10, 9, 8, and people are doing it a little slower and thinking about it. But that is a concept of play, where I'm giving over to the players control of the game. I'm helping them make it their experience, rather than me as the designer dictating everything about it. And that's why I try to bring the spirit of play into my games, because I like to have the players feel some ownership of what's going on, of co-creating that experience with me.
Well, it's kind of like when we've played like Pandemic or Talisman or whatever, where you do have like an ultimate goal at the end, but you can still kind of like make the choices for your character or your team. Because I know like we've lost the Pandemic game, like the Cthulhu version, like 3 different times, or even Pandemic the Cure. We've been playing like, okay, let's see if we put into this character and this character and this character, how does this scenario work? Oh, crap. The whole thing outbroke, and so therefore the virus took over. Well, let's reshuffle, and then let's try it a different way, and then try it a different way. So it's like we're still all trying to problem solve this and play. We're like, damn it, we didn't win, so let's try this again. Let's shaking up, and let's see if this would have worked, or this would have worked, or this would have worked. And then, of course...
Well, you've hit upon my favorite innovation in board games in the last decade or so, and that is collaborative games.
Oh, I love collaborative games.
Where everyone's working together to work with the game, and it creates a very different spirit. That is where I see the tabletop come to life, as compared to a game where it's very competitive and people are just sitting there and they look like they're constipated as they're staring at the board, and they don't look like they're having fun. In collaborative games, people are engaged. They're talking. They're trying to work out this puzzle together, and that's what I like so much about escape rooms. They're collaborative activities where you've got people coming together and sharing in this challenge and sharing in a face-to-face way, which we don't get in online spaces, and then we lose that. Even if you're working with other people online, it can be hard to replicate that face-to-face experience. And that's I like what's gone on with collaborative tabletop games, and that's what drew me really to get engaged with escape rooms, is that we're working together against a challenge.
I have to say, using voice chat in online games makes a huge difference with that. Because, I used to play single player, first-person shooters, and then once I got into collaborative, like Catch the Flag and team games against other teams, we got onto voice, and the dynamics changed incredibly.
Oh, yeah.
Because
and do you enjoy the loving, supportive community of voice chat that you get through? And I'd say that's a key difference between, if you're with people you know, that's one thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
If you're with people you don't know, it can be very awful.
See, I've never done voice chat with anyone but my team.
Right, yeah, I've been blessed by, because I've been playing World of Warcraft on and off since it came out 14 years ago, and I have a guild, a set group of people that I met on Warcraft, and so for 14 years, these people have become my friends and kind of extended family. So I'm blessed that it insulates me from the general joy of being out in the public of the internet. But yeah, he's right. I mean, it's having that interaction change when you hear their voices and you can talk and you can hear their sense of humor and the tenor of the voices. It changes how you interact on the game itself.
Whereas my kid, who's jumping into whatever game on whatever team, he gets so
you don't know
frustrated.
What you're
you don't know what you're going to
exactly.
get, and he ended up getting himself banned for 24 hours on
because he starts swearing at him.
Because something happened, and I'm just like, what lesson did we learn?
Yeah.
Here's my imitation of the internet. You suck.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Seriously, Billy lands the entire thing in one 2-word phrase. And so now it's where with Tabletop Day, we want to celebrate that collaboration. We want to celebrate everybody being together in that social atmosphere. and
I
being
prefer
together. And I do too. I mean, I've been playing Dungeons and Dragons now for 30 years.
Wow, you're old.
Shut up. You're not that much young. You're only what, 2 years behind me? So
Yep.
stop. So
I'm
stop.
much younger than you.
Yeah, okay.
But we'll
Well,
always
Chris started in the womb.
be younger.
Yeah,
he was the only 1-year-old that was playing Dungeons
That's
and
right.
Dragons.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was rolling
No,
dice
but
in nursery.
But truly, getting together and just getting with a group of friends and playing, whether it's a board game like Talisman and things like that, or even playing the Cthulhu and things like that. It's
Or maybe a podcast.
No, well,
Doing a podcast together?
Yeah, that's...
We should try that
should
sometime.
try that sometime.
I'll hit the record button.
Yeah, please. Thanks, Billy.
It'll never work.
It'll never work.
It'll never work.
No, but I mean that's the thing. It's like I like the physical human interaction. I mean, like, because
Well, we're social creatures, humans. That's why the internet comment section is always so strained for us, because it's not very social.
no,
You know, it's always just very antagonistic and polarizing.
And to put in a plug for a relatively new game, have you heard about Untold Adventures Await?
I have not.
No.
And I am now going to write it down.
If I were to send one takeaway with people as to if you like the idea of this collaborative storytelling, but Dungeons and Dragons is scary, Untold Adventures Await is a new board game put out by the same people that create Rory's Story Cubes. And so these story cubes have been out for some time, and what they are a series of dice that have images on them. And there's a series of games you can play with them where you roll the dice and tell stories. And Untold Adventures Await creates a 1-hour collaborative role-playing game using those story cubes as the base. And what they've done is very clever, that it's designed with a story structure based off of the hero's journey. And you'd only know this if you've studied the hero's journey, but you put dice out and tell stories about the dice faces, and then those dice come back to revisit you. So you have this big challenge, and then you struggle and you learn, and then you have a revisit of the challenge. The game gives prompts to help you go through. So you make characters. You go through five scenes, and it frames it all within the TV show to say, okay, what's the name of your TV show? What's the genre of your show? Who are your characters? Who is the bad guy? What are you facing off? What will happen in the next episode? And it sets it up that you can play again and again with the same characters to continue telling your story. But it's designed, it plays in about 1 hour for up to 4 people. You don't need a GM. You don't need any preparation, but you get a good role-playing style experience that prompts people who've never done role-playing and helps them tell stories.
That sounds fascinating.
It is.
I'm looking at it
incredible what
right
they've done.
now.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
I can think of many GMs who might need to play this.
Why are you looking at Sherry?
No, I'm not. I'm not looking at her. I'm just happy to
Sharing-
be looking in her
he's sharing
direction.
the comments.
I was,
is what he is.
okay.
He's not accusing her of anything.
No, okay.
you know, if I was going to accuse anyone, I'd be turning my head the other way. But he's telling a wonderful story, so
Oh yeah,
that's,
he's telling
that's
a
not
story.
an issue.
Something
so.
about a baby dragon dying.
Yes. There's
No, it lived.
It
lived.
did.
It lived. Yeah.
I knew that.
You got to know the right spells.
I-
I'm not a
I-
full-on George R.R. Martin in my dungeon mastering. I'm just going to tell you that right
secrecy. I couldn't tell you.
now. Yeah.
He's like, don't tell her.
So on April 28th, Professor, on International Tabletop Day, I'm assuming there's going to be a game, an escape room that has your name all over it. Am I correct in that assumption?
Actually, probably that day we'll do something in our game lab.
Okay.
That we have up in Brantford in the BGNlab, the Begin Lab, where games begin. We do events that we open the doors up to the public to have them come and engage with what's going on. So if people want to see what we're up to, if you want to go to BGNlab.ca, we have public events that happen regularly. We've got our Game of the Year Fair happening next week, next Friday, where we invite people to come and see the best games made by our students, because we're coming up to the end of our semester, so we like to show off what our students have done.
That's cool.
That's great.
Can I have you repeat that web address for me, please?
Sure, it's BGNlab.ca.
Okay.
.ca.
Okay.
Yeah, beginlab.ca. That's,
Gotcha.
And you'll find a blog there. You'll find links to videos that I do about escape rooms and about game design and things like that. And that would be the best way to keep up if you live. Brantford is about 4 hours away from Syracuse, about 3 hours from Rochester. And so we do regular events there. They're open to anyone that wants to come and join.
How close are you to Niagara Falls?
About an hour and 10 minutes or so.
Okay.
That's not a bad drive.
Yeah.
That's
No,
nice.
it's a pretty easy trip.
I can get across the border now.
You have your extended license finally?
I do. I can get across the border.
Congratulations.
They'll let me over.
Finally had that felony wiped off your ass.
Yeah.
Billy.
Your record.
Felony adorability.
Well, if you're looking for what I would see the best escape room that is in that area, easy to cross the border and see, that has story-based puzzles. It's at the Crux is the name of the company, CRUX, and the game is called Dead Air. It just recently won an award. The designer works really hard to integrate story in with the puzzles and the challenges. He's really pushing the narrative forward. So if you want to explore that, I would. That's my plug, is to go check out the Crux in Niagara Falls.
The Crux
at Niagara Falls, Canada.
All right.
Awesome. It's a rock and roll zombie apocalypse escape game.
Oh, see, because that's very topical these days. We have plenty of zombies. Most of them are in Congress.
Scary?
No.
It is. It's not scary.
Okay.
Despite what the story is, and I think that's the biggest problem he has, is people think it's going to be scary, and it's not. You're in a radio station booth.
I've never been in one of those.
No, I've never been in a studio.
So imagine, look around yourself right now. Everything you see is that's what the escape room is you're in a radio station, and so it's the broadcasting the last known radio message, and you're going to try and see if there's another person that's living there. And what they did, awesome. I'm going to spoil a little bit here about hints. So to do hints to help the players know what to do, you listen to the radio feed that's playing the whole time.
I love it. Of course, if I walk into another studio and see a life-size cutout of Shaquille O'Neal, I am probably going to start panicking. He's staring at me right now.
Well, stop looking that way.
I can't help it. I'm
Look
a fidgeter.
at Billy instead.
I can't see
Shaq's better.
I can't see him through the microphone. All right. So listen to the radio feed. There's a good tip. And then I'm sure that they're probably giggling. The people who create these rooms are always like in the background giggling as folks are like floundering around and missing the point.
Or crying.
Or crying because this is so obvious.
We made the escape rooms for the Red Bull Escape Room World Championships.
Oh, wow.
So I was on the TV show live as the final two teams are working through the final challenges, and they're both getting stumped on one of the challenges, and I'm watching as neither team is figuring out what to do. And you could see my face just drop, not solving it. And both teams ended up timing out on that specific puzzle. Neither team solved it. What was interesting, so as me as a puzzle designer, I'm like, oh, that's horrible. You know, they didn't get what to do. And because it was competitive, I couldn't jump in with a hint.
Oh, okay.
Say, hey, try this thing. I just had to watch them fumble around and flail. And that was rough to be on live TV watching this go on, realizing the teams are just not figuring out what to do.
And that's like the every crux of a parent or a teacher when someone's failing at somebody, you want to jump in and help them, but
they need to go through the experience.
Try to figure it out from themselves.
It's like watching a train wreck, really. It's just, you know what's happening. You just can't do a darn thing about it. That's all.
So if you want to see me tortured for the 10 longest minutes of my life, go to redbull.tv and watch the Escape Room World Championships and see me up there trying to watch this all go. But we learned a lot, and we're making the ones for next season's Red Bull World Championships as we speak. So they've hired us back to be the designers, and I've got 5 students working with me on that.
That's great.
That's amazing. That's just wonderful.
I'm looking forward to that. That's definitely very cool.
I want him to come down and do something for us.
Seriously. Seriously. I think we need to, when we're off air, we'll see if we can talk to him about coming down and visiting us for FC3. We might not be able to swing together this year, but definitely
year.
for 2019 show. I'd love to have a masterful hand at this. This would be cool. Anybody else got anything?
Where else to go? Where else do we go from here?
I don't think there's anything else we've got left at the moment.
Escape?
Well, we're gonna solve the puzzles and go to break. Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
Professor, thanks for your time today. This has been awesome. I really appreciate it. And Sherry's got something. She's holding her finger up to me, and it's her index, not her middle finger, for a change of pace.
I just wanted to say, please say hi to Professor Lavender and give him my best.
Do you want to say hi to Professor Lavender?
I would love to say hi to Professor Lavender.
I will put him on the phone.
Oh, wow, he's there. Wow. That's awesome.
One of your old students.
And I'm going to stress the word
and we're old. Yeah, we all caught that.
Should have been fun.
Hello.
Hi, Professor Lavender. I'm sure that with all the students you've had over the many years, you do not remember me, but I just wanted to say hi and just to tell you that you are one of the best college professors I've ever had in my life.
You can introduce yourself and remind them what your name was. That's a good puzzle to solve right there off the bat.
Now he's got to figure out
that.
who it is.
Yes, escape that. Yes, this is Sherry Elbersky, and you might not remember me from class, but one time I did give you a ride home when your car was being fixed.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for the compliment.
Thank you for talking to us.
Okay. Here's my better half.
So there you go.
That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks for that, Professor. And thank you for your time today. We really appreciate getting the chance to talk to you.
All right. Take care.
You have
Thank
a great
you.
rest of the day. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And when we come back, we have some short segments and some events coming up.
Shenanigans?
Shenanigans. I'm totally loving the music we've been using lately. I really am. This is the good stuff. So we're back. That was fun. That was a really good conversation.
I want to go play a game now.
I do.
Me too.
I really do.
actually want to go to the Great Escape Room.
Well, there's the one room we haven't done yet.
The
We have to go
library.
rescue Billy.
Yeah, I'm stuck in
He's
the one you
still
guys
stuck.
didn't do.
Never mind.
Unfortunately, down in
Also
our area,
stuck in the 50s.
down in our area, there was only one,
It was called the Skeleton Key, and they closed down.
and they
unfortunately.
closed.
And the best thing was they had an art gallery
Oh, wow.
from local artists.
Okay.
So it was kind of combining a bunch of different things.
That's
it was
neat.
really
It was
neat.
a really cool place,
That'd
but
be kind of
it
a
didn't
cool place to have.
Unfortunately, Oneida, New York was not a good place.
No, I don't think so. Maybe Rochester, New York for something like that, I would think.
I thought you were moving to Rochester.
We
Talk
might,
to him.
if they ever move west of where they are now, we would have to probably find them a house in Macedon or something like that, something out in kind of a little more of a rural area
Rural
because
thing?
Chris can't handle if a house is like literally like 2 steps away from
I
the
can't
houses.
handle that, and I really hate the traffic.
Yeah, well,
It's nice being in the woods.
he's lost in the woods.
Well,
Oh,
actually,
good.
one of the rooms at the Nut House one was Cabin in the Woods.
Is it really?
Yes, that was one of the rooms, and things like you were on a whitewater rafting trip, and the raft
Flips.
flips, and you drag yourself out, and then you go.
Do they soak you before you walk into the room?
I hope not.
I don't. Nobody wants to see a wet T-shirt contest with me in it. That's all I'm just saying right now.
See, Sherry. Haven't you missed us?
Very much.
Now he's within something arm reach.
Yeah.
She can't herd the cat even in the room.
Oh, come on! I'm behaving myself
He's
today.
not bad today.
I didn't
I'm
say he was
behaving.
bad.
I'm so screwed.
Not good.
All right, I'm going to go down. I'm going to go down the list on the script here at the moment. I'm going down in flames.
Aruga,
Oh.
ooga, dive,
Yeah.
dive.
Stop it. All right, we have an event coming up. There's only one event on the calendar right now.
Yeah, because we're like gearing up for the
It-
main
The main
attraction.
event, the big
Are you
show.
ready to rumble? Oh wait, sorry,
Oh,
I can't use
you
that.
ready to
Can I?
rumble?
Should I put a beep in there or something?
I can't use that, can I?
The Flower City Comic-Con coming at you June 9th and 10th of 2018 at the Rochester Riverside Convention Center. Tickets are available for the 2018 FC3 at the following
Everywhere.
locations in and around Rochester. Whoever distributed our tickets did a great job this year. I'm saying.
Brian definitely
Brian is
did
amazing.
some of it, and I know he was trying to get some out to Canandaigua.
Right. We have them at First Print Comics, 13th Verse Comics, Blades for Life at Puff Palace, End Zone Collectibles, Rhinos Comics and Collectibles, Comic Book Heaven, All Heroes Comics. Are you sensing the pattern here? Comic Cetera, who year after year has been good to us, Yankee Clipper House of Cards, Hammer Girl Anime, and Wonderland Comics. If you can get to any one of those places, you can get your hands on actual hard copy tickets for the FC3.
And they could actually drop one of us an email because I currently have tickets in my possession.
I am not entrusted with tickets because I tend to give them out to people at willy-nilly levels.
Yeah, no, I currently have them, and
I want you to come to the show. Here, have a ticket.
So
It defeats the purpose.
yeah.
But
I don't have many, but
See,
I
that
have
never
some.
happens.
no. Sorry.
No,
we do not-
no, that was good.
No,
That's
there was no sorry
why
involved.
we're here.
Yeah, I know. To have some fun. We do not have an everyday hero
Yes, we
this
do.
week, do we?
It's just a duplicate of last
It's a
time.
duplicate of. Sherry did a cut and paste from last
you're
year.
Still my hero.
I know I am. I should be your hero. I just brought you a present.
Yes,
Have I ever told you you're my hero?
I am.
You're everything.
Billy, you're my hero.
Like
I can't do whatever you do over there.
I can't do it either. That's half the problem.
No, so we were working on the panel schedule last night.
Oh, yeah,
and we were
Sarah's
talking
house.
about a podcast thing, a potential panel to have the podcast group interview the people doing podcasting 101 and things like that. So and I'm like, oh yeah, we could get Billy to do blah blah blah. And
That's
then,
a 1
then
week.
Chris goes,
I'm out of town.
Billy's out of town. I'm like, damn it, maybe we can get Polly.
Can we talk Polly into doing
Can we
it?
talk Polly into doing
Maybe.
It would be fitting because every time Polly goes on vacation, Billy has to fill in for them.
Actually,
So-
when I go on vacation, he has to fill in for me.
See,
so.
there you
There
go.
you go.
So maybe
he should be doing
He
it.
should be doing it. But Chris is like, I don't know if Polly would do it. I said, I'm sure that we could probably ask Billy to ask Polly.
We'll give
to
him
do
free
it.
plug for his sauce, and then
His sauce is amazing.
it is.
So
we can bribe him. We can bribe him.
I'm
with
pretty sure
the
we can bribe him.
treats,
Or if we get in good with his wife Ryan, maybe we can have her con him into doing it.
con.
No pun intended, but there you go.
can you do this for these people, Polly?
This rendition of Ryan brought to you by Billy DeTore.
And actually, to be honest with you, it wasn't bad.
But but it was just like
Yeah,
I totally
that's a
forgot
thing.
that you were going to be out of town that weekend, and it was just
Yeah.
like my whole heart dropped. I'm like,
Unless you can talk Bruce Springsteen to coming to the con.
well, no.
I have powers, but I think that is
Because if he were here, he would have to change Thunder Road to Pothole Road.
It still sounds like thunder when you're bouncing along.
Yeah, I'm serious. Especially when you're driving down Lake Avenue lately. It's like, oh, ga-jing, ga-jing, ga-jing. Holy crying out loud. Why do I need new shocks? Because of Lake Avenue.
The thruway was like that in a lot of places. Oof.
So what are we doing for the rest of the day? It's a Saturday. Usually we're recording on Sundays. It's a Saturday today, but we're respecting Easter Sunday tomorrow. And so what are we doing for the rest of the day?
I'm going to see Ready Player One tonight.
Oh, you're going to have to let me know what you think of that one.
I will.
Because he hasn't read the book yet.
No, my wife read the book when it first came out, loved it. And it's a book I want to read, haven't got to, but now I'm waiting till I see the movie.
Right. I remember you telling me about
idea.
that last time.
Because I didn't want to go in with the preconceived notion of the book in my head now.
Right.
So
Right,
now
right.
I'm just excited that it's Spielberg having fun.
And that's where you get the good stuff, is when he's just taken off the leash and just letting my... Oh, see, I'm being handed a chocolate chip cookie from Zeb's. Where was my thought going?
Ready Player One.
Ready
I'll
Player
tell you
One?
if I like it.
Okay, please do. Please
See,
do.
I haven't
Spielberg
finished
at his
reading it
best.
yet. I haven't finished reading it yet. Cherry bought it for me for Christmas, and I had actually taken it out from the Utica Public Library and started reading it then at one of the librarian's suggestions. And I just failed miserably at all of that. So.
I've been doing some preemptive packing because I'm starting to look for a house. As I've said on a couple of podcasts in the past, I'm trying to buy a new house and get ready to move. So I've been doing some preemptive packing, getting stuff off the shelves that just sits there for decoration purposes or whatever. And a couple of nights ago, I took the stack of books that I have set aside. These are the books I've been meaning to read. These are the books that I want to read, that I've been shown to, stuff that Sherry has sent me to read and things like that. And I stacked it all up. The stack of books that I'm trying to read is literally about 4'3".
Yeah,
it's almost as big as one of my kids.
Between my regular books I want to read, library books that I don't have copies of but want to go get them at the library, and just bags of comic books that I haven't even touched yet.
I got a stack of comic books that's taking up a whole section of my bookshelf.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's terrible.
We do have an everyday hero.
We do have an everyday hero?
We do.
Sherry found an everyday hero, Billy.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
I would like to give a shout out to Amanda at the Utica Public Library.
Amanda at the public library. All right, Utica Public Library.
Utica Public Library.
Okay.
Yep, Amanda Stewart.
Amanda Stewart, who was actually the person that I contacted you about tickets because she wants to, about whether kids could come.
Oh, right.
Because she would like to come out to FC3. But she also is in charge of Fandemicon.
Ooh.
At the Utica Public Library, which is a very nice little convention that's
Nice.
specifically for really with kids in mind, because
Okay.
she's the children's librarian and she does a lot of game, and she's just an awesome person, and she's my personal hero.
Nice.
And actually, a little behind the curtain stuff, as long as we're talking about this, down the street at the Rochester Public Library, there's a woman that runs the graphic novel section, like all the comic books and graphic novels. I can't remember her name, and I feel bad, but she knows more about comics and the history of comic books than anybody I've ever met.
We're going to get her name, and we're going to do an official shout-out next time.
I talk to her every time I go there and borrow something. She's always got recommendations.
That's awesome.
She's awesome.
And that's at Rundell.
Yes. So
Downtown.
she works down with the kids section and the graphic novels, and she's very well read and all that stuff.
We're going to track down her name so we can give her a proper shout-out.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
I'll stop in this week.
We're going to wrap up our session today with what was your favorite board game or card game as a child. So that's the question of the week. Billy, what was your favorite board game or card game as a child, and what was the last one you played?
Okay, as a child, I got to go back to like Chutes and Ladders, Candyland, Trouble type of thing.
Okay.
I love Trouble.
Love trouble because like
I know you do.
You don't lose the dice.
Exactly.
Yeah. The Pop-O-Matic. As a teenager and young adult, and Professor Nicholson seemed to be against Trivial Pursuit, but I was good at it, so I loved it.
So you're
Played
a
it.
fountain of useless knowledge.
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
We played that so much. We have so many versions. Of
So
Trivial
I love
Pursuit.
Trivial Pursuit. And the last one I played, I actually had to look it up because now I don't get to play board games with adults because my wife and I just
nieces
live
and nephews,
alone.
right?
But yeah, my niece and nephew come over every once in a while and usually bring games, and they'll be over tomorrow, so I'm sure I'll be playing something. But I had to look up the picture of my cat in the lid of the box of the game we were playing last
that's
time they
right.
were over.
Wits and
It was
Wagers.
called Wits and Wagers.
I
yeah.
remember.
Okay.
I didn't. I had to
I
look
did.
it up. So
it-
Wits and Wagers was the last game
Was
I
it
played.
Oliver that was in there?
Yes. So that was the last game I played, and I remember it being fun. So
There you go. How about you, Tanya?
Oh, God. Well, one that I don't like is Monopoly, because it's the game that never
Yeah, but that's not the question.
Because
I
here.
we
know.
don't play it correctly.
I
Did
like
you know
Monopoly.
that? Nobody
Nobody
plays it
correctly.
what is incorrect about the way most
When you
people play?
land on a property, you get first choice whether you want to buy it or not. If you
Right.
choose not to,
It goes up for auction.
It goes up for auction.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, nobody plays it that way.
Yeah.
And there's truly no money that goes into the middle for when you land on free parking. It's just a free parking space, but everyone seems to throw all their
That's fun,
payments
though.
into
Yeah,
the
yeah.
middle and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, but I always wind up in jail like
Just
every
like a
single
proper
time.
capitalist system. There's something free. Let's pay for it.
Did you know that it was actually first invented as a basically railing against capitalism? It was it was basically to
was
show
a
the
round
evils.
board.
Yeah, it was supposed to show the evils of capitalism.
Yeah.
And then Parker
Great
Brothers
job.
got their hands on it
Yep.
and went,
And turn
"We're-
it capitalistic. Yep.
we're
Great
gonna
job.
make money off of this one.
There was a documentary on Netflix when I first got it years ago. I don't know if it's still on, about the history of Monopoly.
Yeah.
So go see if Netflix still has.
It was
the
invented
Monopoly
by a
documentary.
woman who was a socialist.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, as a child, I didn't play as many board games. I mean, I was an only child, so I would play card games. So card games, I would play Rummy, and my cousins taught me how to play euchre by like the age of 12.
Nice.
So I'm a big euchre player.
So bad. My euchre skills are notorious in many circles.
And I find that, and then
never
the other
played.
one
I'm
is
awful.
card game of 31, or we call it Scat. I don't know if anyone else plays.
Yeah, I played when
Scat.
I was a kid. Yeah.
And
Card
you-
game
you
named
have-
after deer poop. Awesome.
And then you have
Deer?
Hello,
Scat.
dear. Yes, dear.
quarters or dollars or whatever, and then you're on your honor, whatever, knocking,
Gotcha.
things like that. So the last one, but the last board game I played,
Talisman.
no, what did I play last? Probably Sorry Sliders with Riker.
Okay.
It's like the Sorry game, but it's
yeah.
got the little pieces that you slide into like a center hole to kind of gain points and things like that. It's not as mean as actually the Sorry game where you land on somebody's piece and sends it back to their start.
Gotcha.
So, but
All right. Very nice. How about you,
Nice.
Cher?
Probably as a kid, I loved Sorry. Loved that game. I thought that was just the best game.
On YouTube, look up the Carol Burnett Sorry sketch. You remember? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Hold on, I'm looking.
I'm assuming it's on YouTube because everything is.
Actually, not a lot of Carol Burnett is on YouTube.
What was the Mama's Family? Was Eunice?
Yeah.
And they were playing Sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But no, I loved that.
Oh
game
yeah,
when I
it's
was a
on
kid.
here.
Okay, that's a very funny sketch. And I always think of
no
it when
audio
the game.
from this.
Okay.
I can't.
No, you can't. We can't pull it up.
And my aunts, I had aunts that were not that much older than me, but just enough that they had really old-fashioned games. Like they had Mystery Date and
Do you wind up playing Mahjong?
I've never played Mahjong.
Me neither.
Well, other than on the computer.
On the
Yeah.
computer.
I don't think I would have the
Computer,
patience
yes.
to set it up in real life.
Yeah.
Somewhere down in the basement, I have one.
The way you play it in real life
like
is really
it's a rummy,
nothing
It's a
like
rummy
it.
game. It's
Yeah.
not a
Oh, is it?
matching tile
Yeah,
game. It's
no,
a rummy
entirely
game.
different.
Interesting.
They just use the same tiles
Gotcha.
for it. And I'm trying to think of what the last one. Chances are it was either with you or it was with Monk.
It might have been with both of us.
Yeah.
What was,
Because we play, you got to understand, we play a lot of games. It's always been a thing in our family.
Mm-hmm.
We play a lot. We own a ton of games.
I didn't notice when I was out visiting you guys. I didn't see that.
And you
the
didn't even
4
see
shelves.
you didn't even
Yeah.
see the 2 big boxes that are
Right.
We have games
storage.
all over the house.
Yeah, you do.
Between Tyler's room, the toy room.
Your
the,
basement can actually qualify as an offshoot of the Strong Museum of Play. That's all I'm saying.
because between the books and the actual shelf of board games.
Yes.
And then there's games behind the couch in the window seat.
I know.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then the sunroom.
And then the sunroom.
Probably the last game we played was probably Cards Against Humanity,
I think so.
which
Oh, wait.
don't play
No.
with our daughter.
No, it wasn't.
She's
It wasn't.
really good, and it's kind of frightening.
No, it wasn't Cards Against Humanity.
What was
it? Joking Hazard.
Joking Hazard, which
That was the
is
last one we
a
played.
similar type
either way.
game, but it's by Cyanide and Happiness. But probably the last board game we played was probably Pandemic, because Monk and I play a lot of
Yeah,
Pandemic.
you guys play that a lot.
Yeah.
So.
Or, no, I know exactly what it was last one. It was that Supernatural
Oh, that's
Join
right.
the Hunt
yeah.
game. That was the last one we played. Join the
That
Hunt.
was anyone for Christmas.
Gotcha.
You know, I was thinking about the board game night that would have been passed when we record this.
Yeah.
And I
Release.
was in whatever.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
No.
And there was one call. I was in Target, and I'm like, oh, I should get a couple new games to bring to Knox. And one was called The Chameleon. So it's like one of the 4 players is actually kind of like the mole or the chameleon type thing, and you have to figure out which one it is. And he's trying to blend in with the rest of the answers.
That's neat. There is a game that I currently love, but unfortunately, we can't get many people who want to play it because it's a very involved game, and it's called Betrayal at House on the Hill, and where it's a cooperative game.
My sister-in-law Kelly will play with you.
Yeah, it's a cooperative game until it's not.
And she was the betrayer. She ended up winning, and she posted
I've been the
Facebook.
betrayer. Yep.
Yep. Her, Aaron, her cousin, all played it one night.
I remember you guys talking about it. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
she's like, "Oh, this game is the best."
It's a great game. It's a great game, and we have a Cthulhu one that Monk and I play a lot too.
How about you, Chris? Favorite game when you were a kid?
Oh God, we played so many of them I can't even tell you.
Okay.
I'm definitely with Billy about Trivial Pursuit.
Okay.
You know, Jeopardy will be on the other room, and I'll be screaming out answers from the bathroom and the kitchen and
Lee Harvey
upstairs.
Oswald.
He's not one of them.
Chuckles the Clown was a favorite one in our house. So
My sister Jen, whenever she didn't know an answer, that was the answer.
Sure.
okay.
Lee Harvey Oswald.
Gotcha.
And every now and then she'd be right.
Well, no, it's like the one version of Trivial Pursuit we have is we have the Star Wars Trivial Pursuit, and we actually have 2 copies of it.
Yeah.
And it gets to the point where if we're playing with Randy, that Randy, to get a piece of the pie, he has to answer like 3 or 4 questions to our every one, because he would just wipe the board with us.
Yeah, see, at my house, any of the trivia-based or answer-based question type games, I'm not allowed to play anymore. The kids have outright said, "Dad is not allowed to join in because he's he's too good at
Another
it."
fountain of useless knowledge.
I'm a fountain of useless.
So
as,
you
as
need
Zach
to get
would say,
you and Billy and
Oh,
Chris
pretty much
and
everybody
Randy
here.
all.
Can we change the name of this podcast to Fountains of Useless Knowledge?
yes. Well, as Zach used to say,
if it doesn't
make me money, I know it. That's
and
it.
then Zach can't
Yeah,
get Zach in here.
Exactly.
That's it.
So yeah,
I miss Zach. We got to get him back in
I
the
know.
studio.
I was thinking
Yeah.
about that yesterday. That
Zach and Rob.
I keep getting messages from Rob after the podcast saying, "Okay, yeah, next time."
He's been sick.
He has. I'm so
I think
worried
both
about
of them
him.
have, really.
Yeah. So
Zach has been on a one-man army to do the whole view a Marvel movie every week until Infinity War.
Captain America: Civil War.
Is he?
Okay, I'm going to get into cross stitching. I need to pick up some sort of hobby, and
I cross stitch.
This is something that I want to make. It says, "I do many things well, none of which generates income."
There you go. That's it. That's
okay,
us.
I need to make it for Zach.
my favorite game when I was a kid was always Clue. I always knew that. I was always excited to see Clue come out.
I always would lose.
I did too, but I still had fun trying.
Like
there
around
was
the board.
occasional time I would
I was
play.
always Miss Scarlet.
And I also my dad taught me to play chess. And so we were playing chess, and he murdered me on a regular basis on that chessboard. But I remember the one I was like 0-97, and I finally beat him. And I was like, that was my first victory. I was like 12, and I was doing my first victory lap around the house. So I'm like running laps around the house, going, "Yay, I got him!" And he's just like, I let him win.
I played backgammon with my mother. That was a big
in
one
regards
for us.
to chess, there was a set of cards that we got. It was probably Crazy Igor's at the time. It's called Nightmare Chess. So you have a deck of cards or a handful of cards that you play while you're playing chess. That's the only way I was able to beat Randy ever at chess is using these cards, because like your king becomes a pawn and then one other
excuse me,
piece becomes the king. So like my new king was the knight.
Okay, so you're able to switch places and stuff.
But now the knight, the new king being the knight, moves as the knight.
Okay.
And so now you have to chase down the knight. And then you could use toothpicks to put up walls and stuff. That the only thing
God,
that
that sounds like a riot.
And it's called Nightmare Chess. And there's like 2 or 3.
Do you still have that set?
Yeah,
we gotta try that sometime.
There's like 2 or 3 expansions for this, because you use toothpicks to build walls to put a castle wall up, and the only thing that can go over the wall is the knight.
That's great, because he jumps.
So I mean, it was like the best.
Uh-oh.
Supposedly, men made it up. And it's about war and men and the savageness and the bravery and the genius of commanding and moving pieces. And now it's marriage. The queen moves anywhere she wants. Picking off people. And what happens to the king? He's moving one square.
There you go.
That's, yeah, so you were inspired, and that was a great find. As far as the last board game I played would be Talisman at your house, Tanya. That's it.
Seems
I don't
to
play
be
a lot
the
of board
go-to.
games. I mean, D&D does not consider a board game, so I can't count it.
No.
All right, Cards Against Humanity is a card game, so I can't count it. So
Well,
I
it was card or board game.
Card or board game? All right. Well, I haven't even played Cards Against Humanity in a while.
Now, if you're using the miniatures for D&D, then it becomes a board game.
Oh, well, then I was playing a board game just a couple weeks ago.
There you go.
It's Tuesday.
Yeah, that too. So that's I qualify.
There you go.
I'll find a little asterisk.
So when this is aired, you'll have played several board games.
Oh, several.
Yes, because it'll be from the board game night.
When's this dropping? 25th?
Yep.
All right. But we're just in 3 days after this is released is going to be International Tabletop Day. So make sure, people, that you're getting out, get some friends together, and play something. It doesn't matter what. It doesn't matter if it's just, if it's Game of Life, Chutes and Ladders, Sorry, Clue, whatever it is, or something more advanced.
Pretty Princess. That actually has become one of my favorite games.
Okay.
Pretty Princess?
I played that with Lana a lot when we were little, and I wouldn't let her win.
I have to look up what Pretty Princess is.
Oh, you have to see.
Did you ever play Mousetrap, and did you ever get it to work?
I have played Mousetrap, and no, I didn't get it to work.
Yes, we got it to work.
I had help.
We currently have that in our house, and that doesn't work.
Basically, Pretty Princess, you go around the board and you collect jewelry.
Oh, boy.
And you have to collect a ring and earrings and a bracelet and a necklace.
And a tiara.
Our daughter was born.
When was your daughter born?
98.
98. Well, this is vintage 1990 Pretty Princess, the golden first version. Yeah.
Vintage 1990.
Well, the bottom line is, before any and all that, above any and all that, is that International Tabletop Game is coming up on the 28th of April.
Here's a Cinderella
Get out
version.
there, have some fun, get some friends together, and enjoy yourselves. And there's lots of events, like we said earlier in our interview with Professor Nicholson. Millennium Games is going to be having an event, Enlightening Minds over on Dewey. Comic Zone, if you're in the Syracuse area, on South Main and North Syracuse. In Utica, Wanna Play Cafe, Utica Public Library. You can look it up on Geek and Sundry, and you can find if something is in your area. Yep. Because I know there's a lot of people who are starting to listen to us, and they are not necessarily in Western New York.
And chances are probably Casual Dragon Games in Buffalo will probably have something going on.
Most likely.
And they're going to be running the game room at FC3.
So wherever you are, all the way around the world.
There you go, Jason.
Have some fun. Have some fun and roll some dice and play some cards and hang out with your friends and, have a soda, drink a beer, a glass of wine, whatever, and just be social and enjoy your day.
And to quote Will Wheaton's show, play more games.
Play more games.
I thought the quote is show, make it so.
Make it so? Well, that's not his quote,
That's
though.
not his quote. That was Riker.
That's right.
So we're good. So Billy, Tanya, Chris, Sherry, and I are all done for the day, and we will see you again next week. This has been Monkey Business, a product of the Mighty Monkey Corporation. Yes, it has. Purveyors and producers of the Flower City Comic-Con, coming at you June 9th and 10th of 2018 at the Rochester Riverside Convention Center. Love us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/FC3ROC. Subscribe to Patreon, please. We would love to see you there. Have a great day. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll see y'all soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.